Gaze reading where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler free. Gaze reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gaze reading.
Hello and welcome to Gaze Reading. Thanks for joining. I'm your host, Jason Blitman, and I am so glad to have you here today. I don't know about you, but I am just a little bit gayer having watched the Wicked, Wizard of Oz, The Wiz opening number of the Oscars, and I hope it brought you as much joy as it brought me. In other news, there are so many fantastic books coming out today. It is an insane release day, and I'm going to rattle off a few that I know I'm super excited about. We have Tilt by Emma Petit, Scorched Earth by Tiana Clark, Raising Hair by Chloe Dalton, Woodworking by Emily St. James, One Good Thing by Georgia Hunter. We also have I Leave It Up to You by Jinu Chong. His book comes out today, and he's next week's Gaze Reading guest. Also out today is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, which I read, loved so much, and I couldn't let life go by without having her on Gaze Reading. And even though I already had a completely packed March schedule, I have a bonus episode with Claire this coming Thursday. I can't wait for you to hear that and to read her book, Broken Country. And finally, we have today's guest, Charlotte McConaghy. Her book, Wild Dark Shore, also comes out today. Joining me on today's episode as well is guest gay reader, the iconic Bruce Vilanch. Both Charlotte and Bruce, their bios can be found in the show notes. As always, if you like what you're hearing, please share us with your friends, like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It means so much to an indie podcast like this one to get likes and reviews and follows, all the things that help spread the word. And if you're not following Gaze Reading on Instagram, we are at Gaze Reading over there. And right now, there's a huge giveaway going on. I'm giving away 10 galley copies of the book Harriet Tubman Live in Concert by Bob the Drag Queen. You're not going to want to miss that. So go check that out over on Instagram. We're also on YouTube. You could watch these conversations over there. We are all over the place. If you've been listening, you also know that I am so thrilled to be partnering with Aardvark Book Club to provide an exclusive introductory discount. New members in the United States can join today, enter the code Gaze Reading at checkout, and get their first book for only $4, which includes free shipping. So head over to aardvarkbookclub.com, use the code Gaze Reading. Whew, those are all the things. And all the information is in the show notes. It's in the link tree. And without further ado, thanks for being here and welcome to Gaze Reading, Charlotte McConaghy. This is just in case like something wonderful comes up as we greet each other.
Okay.
Because every once in a while, something will like happen. And I'm like, man, I really wish I hit record first thing because that person said something so profound or they complimented me.
I can compliment you. I don't know if I can say anything profound.
Charlotte McConaghy. It's McConaghy, yes?
Yes. I mean, you can say, well, I say McConaghy, but you can say whatever.
McConaghy. No. This is not a say whatever you'd like situation. I want to say what you would say. Someone, Elif Shafak was on the show and I asked how to pronounce her name. And she was like, call me whatever you want. And I was like, no. And she like would not let it go. And I said to her, what would your mother call you?
Yeah.
And she said, Elif. I said, okay, I will call you the same thing that your mother calls you. So Charlotte McConaghy, welcome to Gaze Reading.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here to talk to me about Wild Dark Shore, your new book. I'm going to cut to the chase, Charlotte. Never in my life did I ever think that I would Google wombat poop.
I've enriched your life.
You have enriched my life. And I have to say, it was worth the Google.
It's pretty weird, isn't it?
Is that weird to say?
It's a crazy thing. Who would think that there's a creature that could poo squares?
Poo Squares. How did you discover that?
It was my partner's mother actually has wombats on her property, and we went for a walk and she pointed out the poos, and it was incredible.
I'm obsessed. I love everything about this. That's all I have for today. Have a good rest of your day. Could you imagine? This was really just a ploy for me to tell you I cannot believe you made me Google wombat poop. For our listeners who have not had a chance to read the book yet, do you have an elevator pitch for the book?
I
Or
can.
this is a good time to practice
Yes,
one.
I will. Yes, I'll give it a go. Okay, so Wild Duck Shore is the story of Dominic Salt and his 3 children, who are the caretakers of a very small, remote island down near Antarctica. The island is very dangerous because it's being swallowed up by rising sea levels. So the researchers have left, and it's just Dom and his kids there now, until the night of a really disastrous storm happens and washes up a woman onto the shore. And she's a very mysterious figure. They can't work out why she's there. She's not telling them everything, but she quite quickly comes to realize that they're actually keeping secrets from her as well. So I guess it's a romantic mystery.
I was going to say, I don't even know that you should say more.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah. No, right. Like, woman washes up on shore, ... And a woman washes up on the wild, dark shore.
Yes.
The very first sentence of the book is so evocative. It is, I have hated my mother for most of my life, but it is her face I see as I drown. And I'm curious, what face do you think you would see?
Whoa. Big question.
Whether it was while you were drowning or like in some sort of dire situation, what do you think would be the face that you see?
I would definitely see my children, I think, because I would just be, devastated to be leaving them. And maybe my partner too. I already should say that, shouldn't I?
No, this is a safe space. Whatever.
No, I'd probably choose him because he's the most likely person to rescue me. What about you? Who would
That's
you
real.
think?
That is a good question. Probably my husband.
Yeah.
I have a very good relationship with my sisters.
Lovely.
I'd put them on the list.
Yeah.
And my mom doesn't listen to this podcast, so I don't feel guilty not saying her.
Yeah, I think for Rowan, it's definitely not a case of, her mum's not her best friend or anything like that. They're quite estranged. Well, I mean, her mum's passed away at this point in the story.
Sure. But they had been estranged, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
they
even
had a
matter.
really problematic, troubled relationship full of kind of trauma. So that was something that she was, I guess, unpacking in this moment. And I think it's strange to her too that her mum comes into her mind at that moment.
Yeah. It's almost like your life is flashing before your eyes and you sort of like stop to reflect whilst it's flashing.
Yeah.
It's like, girl, let the life keep going. What's so interesting about the book is it really is this like stranger comes to town story. And there's a line in the book that had me thinking, when is a stranger no longer a stranger? What do you think that is?
I guess there has to be some level of trust, I suppose. So, or an intimacy with them, I think, to be able to kind of feel comfortable sharing who you are with them, then maybe that makes them not a stranger anymore. I mean, Rowan, I think it's quite a swift immersion into this family that she has, just purely because they're the only ones on this island. They're stuck in this very kind of perilous place, really, together, and they really rely on each other. So I think that's another reason that they kind of bond so quickly. And the sad thing is they're her people. She's just kind of met them too late in life.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm.
When you sort of click with someone,
Yeah.
you click with them whether or not you know them or not. It's that feeling of like you meet someone new and they don't feel like a stranger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's like suddenly you've got found family, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was just an interesting thing to think about. Not dissimilar from like when does it go from a person that you know to a friend?
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of there is that sort of threshold, and
Yeah.
is it about time spent together? But I think you saying trust
I think it's
makes total
trust and
sense.
intimacy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think it is also, I mean, in just normal life, I think a friend for me would be someone that I could hang out with alone. Like that would be a real friend rather than someone that I
Yeah,
just kind of see at a party or whatever.
right. Someone who you could spend time alone with, who you enjoy their company,
Yeah.
who you trust,
Yeah.
who you would want to be with and talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, this is your third book in what you have called a thematic trilogy.
Yes.
So we have Migrations, we have Once There Were Wolves, and now Wild Dark Shore. When did your passion for the natural world come to be?
Yeah, it's a good question because I didn't always write about this. I really loved fantasy epics as a kid. So that's what I was writing for my whole sort of first few years of writing novels. And I think I think I was about 25 and I was at film school. I was studying screenwriting and I just had this feeling like I needed to kind of get out into the world instead of hiding away from it and creating an imaginary world. And so after film school, I went and traveled, and I went to the UK and Ireland and Iceland and sort of roaming around looking for my roots, my history. And I just had this real sense of loss and what I could kind of see was happening in the world around me. And I just didn't want to write about made up things when what was real was so kind of heartbreaking and so dramatic. You know, it was such, I don't know, it just really got me thinking. So I had all these kind of really big thoughts swirling around in my mind. And that was when I met my partner as well. And he's very passionate about the environment. He has staunchly been, you know, a vegetarian since he was like 19 years old.
Wow.
And at first I sort of thought, oh no, how am I going to deal with this? But I you know, you quickly realize it's the right thing to do, or at least it is for us. And so,
Yeah.
you know,
So you became a vegetarian?
yeah, yes, it was kind of the only way.
It's so funny that you say this because my husband has never he's never like always loved meat. He you know, little funny pieces of chicken every now and then
Yep.
really bother him. He prefers a vegetarian diet,
Yep.
but he was never like declarative. He never declared himself a vegetarian, but he has recently.
Yep.
And so in our home, we do a lot of vegetarian eating. And I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll like have a burger every now and then when I go out and about. But for the most part, it's
kind
just
of are by
easier.
default, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just sort of have to become that. And
Yeah,
and
so
I
I feel
also
that.
realized that the small bits of meat that I was eating on my own or when we'd go out was just not really worth it for me.
Right.
Because I do actually believe that, or at least I believe in trying to live as well as I can with as little impact as I can. And this just happens to be one thing that's not that difficult to do.
Totally.
So, you know, I've embraced it for
So
better or worse.
you became a vegetarian, and that was like a journey into this passion for the natural world.
Yes, I mean, it sounds silly to say it like that, but yes.
No,
it's,
I
it's all
truly
just
don't
part
think
of
it sounds
isn't
silly at all.
Yeah, it's just part of, I guess, thinking about our impact and how we can kind of make it as positive instead of negative as possible. And yeah, we try to do that in our day-to-day lives in a lot of ways as well. So yeah, I can definitely give credit to Morgan. He's been really amazing. But
Thank you, Morgan.
yes, thanks for making me a better person.
You know, it's so interesting hearing you talk about the journey from writing fantasies. And I'm curious in a minute to hear about perhaps epic fantasies from your childhood that had an impact on you. But there's a question at some point in the book. I can't remember who asks who, but it's, do you like it here or would you prefer to be in the real world? And I'm so curious to know what the real world means to you. So for you to talk about now, the going from the fantasy world to the quote unquote real world, what does that even mean?
um, yes, good question. I mean, I know I was writing fantasy as a way for me to have experiences. I was
Mm,
I was a really bored teenager. I wanted to experience big, life-changing, dramatic moments. I wanted to have big relationships. I wanted them to be heroic and
hmm.
full of magic and beauty, but also danger. And I just wanted, to experience big things, and that was why I wrote these kind of epic fantasies. Um, but you get all that when you write fiction as well. So
Yeah.
I think for me it was just about recognizing that there are all those things in the real world.
Hmm.
Um, and I think for Rowan, when she says that, it's because she's, and I will say this island, Shearwater Island, is based on a real island, Macquarie, and it truly is like another planet. You step foot onto this place and it feels like you have departed Earth. It's really extraordinary. It is so beautiful and strange and almost alien in a way because it's
Yeah.
so
I Googled it
unexpected.
upon reading
Mm.
the acknowledgments or your letter at the end. And I don't know that I wish I Googled it first because it's totally what I pictured, but there's something about really getting to lay eyes on it
Yeah. Yeah.
that was sort of intense.
It is. Yeah, very much so. And I think that's how Rowan feels when she kind of wakes up here. She
Hmm.
feels like she's come into this fantastical world. And so I guess in a
Hmm.
way, I haven't moved that far from writing fantasy, have I?
Yeah. Well, and that's what's so interesting. It's like I, one can't even call this speculative fiction,
No,
right?
it's
Because
it's
it's
not
like
meant to be. It's meant to be
right.
fiction.
No. It is like it's now. It's
Exactly.
not. Or like the very near future, whatever that
Yeah.
means. But yeah, and it's extra funny to me that you are coming to me from tomorrow. Because I was like, oh, that's how near the future is. It's
Yeah.
just simply tomorrow. Yeah, I love that. Okay, what were some epic fantasies that you loved as a kid?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I really loved I don't know if you would have heard of him. His name's Guy Gabriel Kay. He's an
Oh,
English fantasy author. He's old school. I love him so much. I grew up just obsessing over him. So he's got this whole kind of huge breadth of work and you can just kind of sink into them. They're amazing. That's probably he's my main guy
yeah.
who got
All
me into
right.
it. There's others,
I
there's
love
plenty of
that.
others, but yeah. Do you like fantasy?
You know, I it is not my go-to genre.
Mm.
It's so funny because I could sit here and say, like, no, I'm not a fantasy person. But when I tell you that one of my favorite movies of all time is How to Train Your Dragon,
Oh yeah, so good.
like, it's so good. I love a good story.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
so that's what it is for me. If you want me to, I do struggle with books with maps, but, and like hard words and names to pronounce. But if I can like get over that, I just love a really good story.
Yeah, totally. Me too. Any
Yeah,
genre. I'll take any genre. Happy
totally.
to.
A couple of years ago now, when I was seeing not Station 11, but the next one, Sea of Tranquility. I
Yep.
was seeing Sea of Tranquility on everybody's favorite books of the year
Yep.
lists. And I was like,
What is this?
I I feel like I should read it because it's on everyone's list, but this really isn't my genre. I read it. I devoured it. I loved it. I interviewed Emily. I became like obsessed with the book. And I think it was that made me say, like, don't say
Judge.
no to
Yeah.
a genre. Don't judge a
Yeah.
genre.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
because and she's kind of this delicious crossover, isn't she, of literary and speculative, which is kind of I love that. That's sort of
Yeah.
perfect genre.
Yeah. I know. Oh. Did your relationship with the world change in the process of writing this and the other two books for that matter?
I think so. I think a part of me has used the three novels to grapple with certain things. I tend to come at my stories from an emotional kind of lens, or something that I'm trying to work out.
Don't take this the wrong way, but like, no shit.
Yeah, sorry, there's a bit of an obvious thing to say. So what I mean is,
As I sit here hugging Wild Dark Shore, don't worry.
yeah.
Okay, so you come to your books from an emotional place.
So the first one, I would say Migrations, was from a place of sadness about the loss that I could see happening, the specifically species loss, but also personal. Franny is exploring incredible personal human loss and grief that sort of reflects that big external global loss. So that's what that one was trying to wrestle with. Once There Were Wolves, I would say, was anger, rage. I was so angry with the way that I could see animals being treated, but also women. In Australia, we have this horrendous epidemic of violence against women, family violence. Women are getting murdered every like constantly. There was 100 last year women murdered by their partners, and that's a lot for Australia. We don't have a big population. That's just murdered by their romantic partners. So that was all tied in together for me. I was really angry about that. So I wrote this story about a woman who is highly empathetic and basically has to kind of close herself off to that because she's so tired of the harm that she sees being done. And then Wild Dark Shore, these are all sounding super depressing and grim now that I say it like this. But anyway, the reason I start from these kind of dark places is so that I can write into somewhere brighter, lighter, find their
Hopeful.
opposite.
Yeah.
But Wild Dark Shore, I think, is about fear. It's about fear of the loss that what's happening to our world is going to start making us experience, fear of what's going to happen to our children, fear of what we're sort of creating for them and leaving for them, what we're going to watch them go through.
What it takes to face your fears.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Finding the courage to love despite the hazards of love. That's and understanding that kind of love is worth the risk. So I think, I guess in that way, I sort of find a way for these books to help me have a more positive view of the world and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a tremendous way of changing your relationship with the world through these books. I won't give anything away, but there is one tiny nugget. I'm like, I don't even know how I want to phrase this. There's a moment in the book where something very positive happens because of something terrible.
Oh, what is it? Which bit?
I'll cut this part out of the episode. But I have never looked at climate change in a glass half full kind of way before. And like, I sort of feel very sacrilegious to my fellow humans, even saying that out loud. But like, you sort of have to understand the world that we're living in. You know what I mean? And this book certainly helped shape that.
Oh.
What are fears of yours? Therapy session. What are you scared of?
I think I feel like my life is probably going to be fine. That's the reality. We'll start seeing really sad things happening, but I live in a very privileged part of the world, and therefore I think I will probably be okay. My children may not. I don't know if it'll be them or if it'll be their grandchildren, but it's things are going to get much, much worse very quickly. We're going to start losing so much of our wild things, our wild animals and our wild places and our biodiversity. It's all just struggling so badly. And I hate to think of a world that's lost so much beauty and just becomes about survival. That really scares me. I'm scared for all the people who are already living in dangerous places. The the wildfires at the moment are just so devastating. It's a serious current threat. And I think, we can't, I don't know. I don't even know how to kind of fight all of this when we're constantly voting in just psychopaths.
Well, and it's again, I don't even want to say interesting, because me talking about this not being speculative fiction, like, you literally could have written it today,
Yeah.
yesterday, right? There's so much in the book, the wildfires, the rising tides, the all sorts of things. It's not about what's to come and being scared of those things. It's about sort of understanding our world a little bit better, becoming a little bit more empathetic, kinder. The book is about, like, I don't want to say misunderstandings, but it's about there's so much about trust and perspectives and understanding that we're all a little different.
Yeah.
And that's like a very simple way. I don't want to give anything away, but those are just some simple words that sort of come to mind.
Yeah.
It's about observation. It's about intuition. It's about reading people and trusting people. And those, I think, are such interesting takeaways beyond anything happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because these are other things that we can sort of control daily.
Yeah, as in how we interact with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of fun about writing a mystery. You have to really get into the mechanics of trust and mistrust. And I loved the interplay between the sort of her falling in love with this family versus like, I mean, I hope that's a little bit of a spoiler, I suppose, but
I could bleep that out.
Yeah. But like, how can those two things coexist in the same body? I found that really kind of interesting. How can you be falling in love with someone and suspecting him of sort of the worst crime ever? So yeah, that was fun. I really enjoyed writing those kind of elements. And I think that her, as you say, that particularly her relationship with the children is very profound for her, because she has really kind of removed herself from the possibility of having children, but also loving children. And she's just so frightened of what the world is going to do, and how she can, of the hazards that exist around us now. And, she's already experienced the loss of a child because of climate change.
Right.
And so she's really closed herself off to that. And I loved kind of exploring how these kids could chip their way through that armor that she had and become, sort of the most important relationships she's ever had.
And also help her redefine what some of that can even mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I loved the idea that, I wanted the novel to leave space for people who don't have kids of their own, who can't or don't want to, but who also love children, love other people's children, and love the world, the wild planet, with with as much generosity and courage.
100%. It was so strange. I was FaceTiming with a good friend earlier today, and I can't remember the context of why it came up, but she said this phrase. She said, "To what degree are you willing to be a part of the problem in the world?" Like, that was sort of the sentiment that she was trying to say. And I was like, wait, that is so crazy that you're saying that. I need to write that down right now because of the conversation I'm about to have. Because that's like, I mean, it's everything that we were talking about, from vegetarianism to children to like, okay, what's the degree of the issue here? What are we willing to sacrifice?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. And it is going to start coming down to that, isn't it? What do we as individuals, what are we willing to sacrifice for this? Because we're not going to be able to change anything unless we all start making sacrifices. And I'm certainly not saying that we should all stop having children.
No. But it is part of
conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's a matter of it bringing in a new question to the conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And for people who genuinely feel like that's not something they're willing to do, then it's kind of a good thing to take one for the team,
Right.
We have
Right.
a lot of people on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. You brought up the children. I fell in love with them deeply.
Oh, good.
I am obsessed with Orly. I cannot wait for the world to meet Orly. Is he Orly, for the listeners, Orly is Dom's youngest son, who's 9. And was he inspired by anyone in your life, or did he just like flow out of you?
Yeah, he kind of just came. I wanted him.
Yeah.
I really loved him from the start,
Yeah.
from the get-go. I mean, in some ways, it's a weird thing. He's kind of my son. My son's only 3, but I did a lot of imagining what he might be like, and
That's so sweet.
yeah. So it's definitely, there's parts of Finn in there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot. I've got a lot of kids in my life. My friends have
Yeah.
lots of kids. I wanted him to feel real, but also, particularly lovable and particularly sweet, because I wanted all 3 of the children to be, I guess, very generously drawn. I didn't want. I think there's a trope when you write, particularly about teenagers, when you're not writing from a YA lens, when you're writing from the adults' perspective, and you're writing about teenagers, I think there's a bit of we fall into the whole bratty teenage thing very easily. And it's not my experience of most of the teenagers I know. I was a good girl. I just wanted to, have them feel very kind and generous, and it was important to me that they have this incredibly strong family core, that the 4 of them be this sort of really loving, kind of bonded place to start from, so that I could get into the conflict after that, but I wanted it to feel like they were just sort of really, really, they really, really love each other.
As I was saying earlier, a person with 2 younger siblings, that I so related to that family. And it's rare that I finish a book and or even while I'm reading a book, think about wanting to meet a character or hang out with a character. And Orly is that person. I'm like, I just want to hang out with Orly. How weird is that? He's so precocious and joyful.
Yeah, and so smart.
But he's not. It's not saccharine. You're not like writing. I don't want anyone to think that it's like twee. It's not. He's just like they're all fully fleshed out, living, breathing characters in my imagination.
Great.
This is so random. Are you familiar with the book Big Tree by Brian Selznick?
No.
Okay, Brian wrote
Should I be?
The Invention of Hugo Cabret, like that, those books. I highly recommend it. It is, and it's perfect for your children as well. But it is the entire life of 2 seeds.
Oh, wow. How beautiful. I would love to read that.
Beautiful. It is so good. And I think you'll love it.
Yeah, thank you. That's
after finishing this
great
book.
tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as you would be referencing, there are stories of seeds threaded throughout this novel.
There are. How did you even choose those?
Well, that was hard. I honestly, at a few points during that, I thought, what have I done to myself? This is just so difficult. The dandelion one was the first one. So it sort of tells you the life story of a dandelion seed and all the creatures that it sustains, all the creatures that feed from this one dandelion. And just as a way to, I guess, I wanted to show the interconnectedness of everything living. And I also needed, it's a tricky thing when you decide you want to write a book about seeds. They're certainly not as charismatic as, say, a beautiful bird or a wolf, which I have done in the past. And so I had a bit of a challenge with this one about how I was going to make people love seeds. I remember I told my grandma I was writing a book about a seed bank, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds very boring." Okay. So I needed to bring them to life.
Yes. I wanted to Google every single one of them. I did. And you are experiencing the world through these seeds.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I was trying to sort of, I wanted to give a sense of they're actually quite extraordinary. A lot of
Yeah,
them.
they really are.
They're really strange
Yeah.
and beautiful, and they live these kind of mysterious, magical lives that we know nothing
Mhm.
about, and yet they're
Mhm.
kind of responsible for all life on the planet in a
Yeah.
way. So I don't know how I chose them. I had this amazing book. I had this incredible book with photography of seeds.
Photography of seeds.
It's amazing. Some of them look just extraordinary. Like they're really, really.
What is the book called?
I'll show you.
Oh. Oh, wow.
And beauty of seeds and fruit. And so it's got like just really kind of beautiful, strange images. Some of them are like crazy.
Oh my God. That's very cool.
Yeah. So I was just sort of flipping through this a lot and trying to sort of, I don't know, find seeds that were interesting, but that were also attached to a plant that I could tell a story about. Yeah. So it's.
Oh my God. Thank you for flipping through that. Everyone has to go watch this on YouTube because it looks so cool. Wait, did the book come first or did the idea for the seed? Did you own the book already?
No, I knew I wanted to write about
and you
seeds, and so I was
you bought the book.
researching.
Yeah.
I was trying to look for
Fun.
anything that would
It's a
inspire.
beautiful book.
Yeah, it was so good. It was just the best, so helpful. Yeah, that's pretty much how I started.
Yeah.
And then a lot of just research specifically on each of the I will say the Wallamai pine, there's a story in the book about the Wallamai pine, and that came before any of this book. That was the very first thing that came, and I knew.
Is that the like prickly one?
It's the one, it's the dinosaur tree. So the Wallamai pine was thought to be extinct for
Oh, right.
millions of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
years. And then it was rediscovered, this tiny little patch of them in an Australian bush, hidden away. It had been hiding for millions of years. They rediscovered it again. And it had to be kept secret because it can't be, they've got to make sure it's protected at all times.
Mhm.
And then the fires were raging towards it, our really shocking fires that we had a few years ago.
Mhm.
And all over the news was the story of these incredible like rescue firefighters that were being dropped from helicopters down into the forest in order to make a barrier
Save the
around
trees.
these trees.
Yes, I'm remembering this now.
And save them sort of no matter what.
Mhm.
They're,
Mhm.
so precious. And they would have been extinct if this was the last ones had burned. And they saved them. And I just remember thinking, what an amazing story about the things that we choose to save. And so that's sort of where this whole idea started.
Might you say it was the seed?
It was the seed.
I love that. Fen, the daughter.
Yes.
It is said that she is basically one of the seals. If there was a creature that you could be one of, what would it be?
Oh man, that's hard. Like favorite animal.
That's very
isn't it?
sweet that's hard.
I love animals.
Yeah.
Um
You could say a few.
Okay, well,
I won't-
obviously, like, I love wolves in particular. I wrote a whole book about them. I love them, and I find them endlessly fascinating. They're so misunderstood, so kind of gentle and family-oriented, and so, yeah, it'd be nice to be part of a wolf pack, I think. That would be, you'd be pretty safe if you were part of a wolf pack. Whales, I love whales. Although, to be honest, I don't think I would want to live under the ocean.
Why?
I have anxiety about being underwater.
Well, if
Not
you were a
swimming.
whale,
Yeah.
although I guess, right, you wouldn't, if you were, no, you're a person among the whales. So, okay, that's fair.
But yeah, I guess if you're a
Interesting.
whale, you wouldn't be worried about that, would you?
Right. No, I didn't say what would you want to like come back as. No, you answered the question correctly. Thank you.
What would you choose?
I don't know.
It's hard.
I think I'm sort of like intimidated by the natural world.
Are you?
Slash, I don't want to say disgusted. I'm thinking of like of the seals and like when you go, this is terrible. In San Diego, there's a cove in La Jolla where there's just like endless amounts of seals on the beach and rocks. And so it's like a very smelly, loud area. And so I like can't help but picture that. And I'm just like, why would someone want to be among that?
I mean, that's
Um,
fair. I would look at that and think, oh, it's so beautiful. And, you know, and then probably the reality of if I actually went down into it would be horrifying.
Right.
So-
That's sort of what I mean. Yeah. You like see them, you know, nipping at each other. And
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I don't want to. Right. But I guess if I was to just like get along with the creature
Yep.
and be amongst them, what would it be? You know, I recently went to see the giant pandas at the San Diego Zoo. And they like really are as sort of goofy as all the videos online make them out to be. And they're just like happy and they're silly and they like are very carefree and they just eat snacks. And I feel like I would thrive in
Yeah,
that environment.
that sounds amazing.
Silly and eating snacks.
And just cuddling. Very
Right.
cuddly.
Very cuddly. Yeah, that's my answer for right now, I think.
Read it.
So back to Fen, she has this really amazing quality where she can be very calm and very zen. Is that is that you at all?
I think it was definitely me before I had kids. I feel less
Interesting.
calm now.
Why do you think that
I guess
is?
actually
Are you
in
worried?
some ways I feel less calm. In other ways I feel more calm. You know, I have like, you have to go into that mum calm, which is stay calm through screaming crazy, multiple people screaming at you thing.
That's genius. And also in the Australian accent, it sounds fantastic. Whereas as an American, mom calm, just it's uglier sounding. Anyway,
What did I say? Mum calm, mum calm.
yeah. I'm giving you a complex. I'm sorry.
Now I'm feeling like I talk like a bogan. Okay.
No, you don't. Oh my God. I watched too much Kath and Kim.
I love Kathy Kim.
Oh, I'm so glad. So
Um,
silly.
Yeah, look, I think in general, yeah, I'm a pretty calm person.
A generally calm person. Yeah. Okay, on the flip side,
Mhm.
do you have your version of the bag? The punching bag.
Oh, the punching bag. No,
What do you do to blow off steam?
I don't vibe with the punching bag at all.
Oh.
And
You don't need to get out aggression.
no, and
Okay.
well, you know, I have my moments. Everyone has
Sure.
moments, particularly like waking up 50 million times in the middle of the night. The punching bag thing to me is a very I wasn't sure if this is a comment on slight toxic masculinity in terms of the need for everything to be about aggression and what Dom is capable of teaching his son. And I suppose I wanted, and look, my partner would say that's ridiculous and that you actually sometimes just need a physical outlet for things, sure. But the punching thing is, for me, I don't know. I think teaching young boys to deal with anger and aggression by punching things is not necessarily helpful. And I suppose I wanted Rowan to kind of offer a different perspective on that and some.
And she does.
Yeah.
There's a great line that I underlined. No, that's interesting. I think for me, it's almost the opposite, where I need to learn how to channel any frustration or aggression.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And not keep it inside
Yeah.
because the things that it can do to you internally.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need to be aggression, or it doesn't need to be outwardly aggressive.
Mhm.
But how do you take
Release it.
something? How do you release it?
Yeah.
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 How do you, if you're not being violent, how do you release your frustrations? This is a teachable moment for me.
Well, this is something that I need to learn as well. So I think we're both in this
interesting.
together because I don't
Okay.
have an outlet really. It's my writing, I think.
Oh,
Not
sure. That's a
necessarily
great answer.
always writing from a place of anger or frustration, but I think
No,
there's an
no.
element of, you can just get stuff out in a way that's, I don't know, I suppose it helps you to kind of navigate it a little bit. A lot of people
Yeah.
would say exercise, but I really hate exercise. I hate it. I find it so boring. I think oftentimes even if it is the talking thing. Like if we can articulate something and name it, it's much easier to let go of it. And I'm trying to teach my son that, he's a three-nager at the moment and he's having a lot of big angry moments, and it's hard when
Oh,
he's three
geez.
because it's like, well, how do you, he doesn't have the capability of being rational.
Yeah.
So how am I going to, show him that actually if he can name what he's feeling, it will probably be gone, rather than I'm just going to stomp around and like break something or,
Yeah.
I'm,
It's interesting. I do this on every episode. I also include a guest gay reader. And one of the things I ask them is I ask them what they're reading, and then I ask them what are they reading? What is a grievance they have that they want to air? And I've been thinking a little bit about maybe getting rid of that, because I think some people hear reading as like a sort of a negative something towards somebody or something. But I also think that like in our world right now, when there's a million things that are just terrible, that the thing that's bugging you that seems so small that you haven't articulated is like still festering inside of you. So here, this is your safe space. Complain about the construction on your street, but your friend doesn't care about hearing it because they have other shit going on. You know what I mean? And so like, it's just interesting that we actually all really need to be expressing ourselves right now,
yeah,
including your
absolutely.
son.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's 100%. Like, I think things lose their power over us as soon as we say them out loud. And that's one of the things that this family don't have, because they can't communicate with each other. They've got a father who is so stoic and quiet and does not know how to talk about how he's feeling, or talk to his children about how they're feeling. So
Yeah.
they've not grown up with this ability to like properly kind of feel their feelings. I think that's why they're suffering so much, and that's a big thing
Yeah.
that Rowan brings to them, is that she's trying to sort of, I suppose, teach them how to all communicate with each other and how to talk about how they feel.
Yeah. So speaking of, as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I don't want to give anything away, but there are elements of queer love in the book. And I would love if you could share a bit about why that was something that you included.
Yeah, sure. To be honest, I didn't give it a huge amount of thought, because I have a lot of queer people in my life, and it just felt true, It felt like just a real relationship and a real character. I always want to kind of make the worlds that I write feel real, and that to me felt real.
I love that.
Yeah.
It can be that simple too.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'm curious to ask, because you sort of never know
Yeah.
an author's experience. In fact, strange, the person who said that quote to me earlier today also was just talking to me about The Bright Sword, the book. And in The Bright Sword, there's a trans character. And when I was in conversation with the author, I just asked about that. And he told me that his kid is trans.
Oh, wow.
And it was just, again, like a really interesting perspective, and why it was so important to him to include that in the story.
Yeah.
So I always, it's always just interesting where it comes from. And even hearing I didn't think twice about it is sort of amazing.
Well, yeah, good. I mean, my mum's queer, my best friend Charlie's queer. Like, it's just, it's just kind of a normal thing in my life, and I would hate to erase that from my stories.
Yeah. And I just fell in love with this family, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the world to read it.
Thank you so much. It's been such a nice chat. Really nice talking to you.
Oh, I'm so glad. So nice talking to you too. But truly, it was a pleasure to read, and you're a delight to talk to. And I'm so grateful that you were here on Gays Reading.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just been so lovely.
Well, thanks, Charlotte McConaghy. I am so thrilled to have you as my guest gay reader today.
Great to be here.
You have written 700 award shows. You have starred on the Broadway. And as we've already discovered, you are everyone's favorite Donna Kelsey doppelganger.
It happened about a year ago at the Super Bowl. And I got these calls saying, dude, what are you doing at a box with Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl? So, of course, I had to tune in. I was waiting for the halftime because I don't care about the game. And there she was. And I thought, my God, it's me. Blonde, red glasses, chubbiness. And I thought, I hope they stay together because I'm going to ride this joke for as long as I possibly can. And there they were again. But now that they lost this time, the whole dynamic may change. Who knows?
That's a shame.
Yeah, I know. The heat is off.
How you haven't been on Saturday Night Live?
I'd been done on Saturday Night Live. When I was 20 years ago on Hollywood Squares, which was actually 20 years ago, they did me a few times. Horatio Sands did me, and Will Sasso did me on Mad TV, and somebody else did me. I think Bobby Moynihan did me on SNL at one point. Yeah, whoever the fat guy was on the show, they
At the time.
yeah. Didn't make it to the 50th anniversary show, I noticed. That I certainly gave them enough fuel.
It's like being a Monday answer in the New York Times crossword. You've made it big enough that you're an easy answer.
Absolutely. When I wrote for Bob Hope years and years ago in the 70s, and I was working with Bette Midler. And at one point, we were going through old jokes that he had, and we had a file of Phyllis Diller jokes, which were basically about crazy wild women. And he was looking at this guy and said, yeah, let's use this one. Well, toss out Phyllis and we'll put in your friend Bette Midler. I thought, oh my God. Other than the mispronunciation, he knows who she is. And I called her and I said, Hope is putting you in his monologue. He would not do that unless you were well known all over the place. So you can retire now.
But heads up, he's going to call you Betty.
Yeah, I corrected him. Yeah, right away. Right away. But we had many stories about people on a marquee changing the spelling and all that. But yeah, so it was like a hallmark of recognition that Hope would put her in the monologue.
That makes me think, I wonder if there's a story of anyone who was early enough in their career who then changed their name because someone pronounced it wrong.
No, this is ridiculous, but Dionne Warwick added an E to Warwick because her numerologist told her it would bring her luck. And so for some time she was Dionne Warwicky. And everybody just ignored it. Except Kay Ballard. Kay Ballard was so pissed off. She went to that numerologist, she took her E off of Kay for a while. And she didn't even go to the numerologist. She later said that wasn't the story. She was pissed off because she already had enough trouble being mistaken for Kay Stevens, who was another comedian actress of that period. So but the changing the pronunciation, I'm sure there was somebody, but it seems to me there was somebody. I just can't remember who. It'll come to me in a blinding flash.
I feel like I could say a word and you could jump into a fabulous story that word evokes in you.
You've been around enough that there's always something you should attach it to. If you're of a mind.
Well, I was going to say, and the fact that you remember them. Listen, for all I know, you're making them up.
No, that was a true one.
Okay, Donna. What are you reading? You're my guest giver.
I have my book. I was thinking about that. I have 3 bathrooms in the house, and so there are books piled up. And I was looking through the collection, and I realized I have certain passions that I read about that are not necessarily ones you want to tout, but I loaded up with show business biographies partially because they're people I know I want to see if I'm in them. In Barbara's book, which is 3,400. I'm on page 1,042 of the 3,000 pages at 48 hours of audible recording.
Who cares? You're in it.
But I'm not in it. There was no index, but Vanity Fair did an index. And I immediately went to that, and I'm not in the book. And I know her. We had an incident 20 years ago, and I thought, she's gotten over it. I was so pleased to see that.
That's a good thing.
So I do have a lot of that. One bathroom is the biography of Reinhard Heydrich, who ran the SS and had the final solution and all this, and was killed. Anyway, it's based on interviews with his wife, which is fascinating. And then I love gay novels. I love mysteries. So there are gay mysteries. I'm reading one now, it's called The Winkler Affair, which is not Henry. He's straight. It's a series,
Course we
apparently, I didn't know about, but it's Double Indemnity with gay guys
Oh, that's fun.
in the 70s. It's an interesting parlay. Yeah, it was recommended to me, and I've just gotten into it. I have a whole bunch of books I noticed in a stack that are like biographies of hotels. They're books about famous hotels and the stories of things, how they were founded and run, and how they changed, and incidents that happened in them, like the Plaza, and in New York, and the Savoy in London, and also the Connaught. There's a book about the Waldorf there, and it's fascinating because it's about a kind of microcosm.
There are multiple books like this?
There are multiple books. There are also, I have multiple books on the Titanic. Shipwrecks. I love shipwrecks. I'm fascinated. I think because when I was a kid, the big book about the Titanic was published, A Night to Remember, which was a movie and the inspiration for James Cameron's picture many years later. But of course, that is already 25 years ago, and it's inspired every nerd who was fascinated by the Titanic, like me, to find some aspect of it.
Is there something new that you're learning?
Yeah, but it's not so much new as it like it confirms something you've heard someplace else. For example, I will tell you,
Your cross-reference.
this is the most arcane Titanic reference ever. The French bulldog was created at the turn of the 20th century in France by people who mated various kinds of bulldogs and got them down to a size and a certain kind of look with the bat ears and all of that. And it was a brand new breed that had not really been discovered, but it was quite the rage in Paris. And there was lots of demand for French bulldogs in the United States. Now, every French bulldog is essentially descended from this one male that was the perfect French bulldog. This perfect French bulldog was sent to America to mate with other bulldogs to create the breed over here. He was shipped over on the Titanic. He apparently survived the sinking and was seen by several survivors, like Kate Winslet, floating on a door, lying on a piece of wreckage, floating around. There was this weird-looking dog. And most of the dogs died, obviously, and they never found this one. The presumption is he froze because he fell in the water and froze. And they don't swim. They can't. Their bodies are not built. They can barely mate because of the way their bodies are built. This arcane piece of information has now in the Titanic lore, which I think that's fascinating. And more evidence keeps coming up because they everybody's been dead for years, right? And the ones who were alive, I interviewed when I was in the 70s, when I interviewed at the Chicago Tribune, interviewed Titanic survivors on the history of the thing. They were all old then. They were kids. They were all children when they were on the boat, the ship.
Sure.
And so now they're all gone. But you comb through diaries and things they left, and then there'll be a stray reference to, I thought I was hallucinating. I saw a dog floating around, not swimming, but floating around, which is evidence that it was the French bulldog, because the French bulldogs don't swim. If she saw a dog swimming, it could have been Lassie, could have been Rin.
I appreciate that you use the term stray reference.
Yeah, that's right. A stray reference.
That was a fabulous accidental joke.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. I forgot I did that. Oh, wow. Chop that up. Anyway, so that's the kind of, I'm always reading that kind of stuff. When they were shooting Titanic, I was actually on the set for a minute. It was down in Mexico.
Why?
I had friends who were in it. Victor Garber was
okay.
playing Thomas Andrews, who designed the ship, and I had some other people in it, but I think I went to see Victor. But they were shooting the scene where Kate Winslet is on the stern and she's contemplating jumping off. And I said, this is ironic. A woman commits suicide on the Titanic. But clearly she was not a psychic.
She didn't see her numerologist.
No, she had no kind of metaphysical advice on this.
Oh my God. Always get your advice before the intercontinental.
Yeah, I wonder if this is what the picture is about this woman who kills herself for no reason because she could go anywhere.
I think I'm most concerned that you are spending as much time as you are in the bathroom.
Oh, you get to a certain age, and that's what happens. You take a line every day and
That's where you can read. Listen,
read, and you're on a lot of water pills because that part of it is that you keep shedding water. So don't ask. It's all
things to look forward
these are all
to.
things that will, these are all things you will find out quickly in Palm Springs. Actually,
Bruce, we have to talk about your book. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. The worst TV shows in history and other things I wrote. This came to be because you were on a lot of podcasts with young people who were digging up all the old things that you never thought were going to see the light of day.
I couldn't believe it. They would ask me about these things I wrote in the 70s and 80s. And they said, what do you remember? And I said, if you say you remember the 70s, you weren't there. Because a lot of these ideas were cooked up in clouds of smoke.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. There were a lot of very crazy shows. I just happened to pick out some of the ones that I was involved in that are notorious because they're on the internet. And they continue. And they have a relevance because Star Wars is still around, the Brady Bunch is still around, and Halloween is still around. So whenever Halloween comes around, the Paul Lynde Halloween special shows up because it's one of the few things you can watch with your kids where nobody gets slashed. Because Halloween is all about that, and Hocus Pocus, which is where nobody gets slashed, I don't think. I don't remember, maybe. Maybe in Hocus Pocus 3, there'll be a disembowelment to amuse everybody.
Did you go back and watch all these things in prep of writing this?
I did. I had to. I had to make sure that I wasn't misremembering, and I had an editor who came back and said, with occasionally things he said, this probably didn't happen in the sequence you're relating it because of the dates don't quite jibe and all that. So now that you can go online and do all of that, and it certainly is a boon to editors because I know how he would have done that otherwise. But
Sure.
And I was conflating things every now and again, but we straightened it. So I would go back and look at it and straighten it out.
What kind of memories did it bring back?
Visceral. It sounds so odd, but a kinder, gentler time. I don't know if that's even true, but it was a smaller town. It was a smaller business. The television was in most places, the 3 networks and whatever local stations were any market could scare up. And the world was not as much with us. There wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. There wasn't keyboard warfare. While there was tremendous political division, it wasn't crazy and mean-spirited the way it is now. Or I should just say, you didn't get exposed to that because now we have a culture where it's all high school. It's narcissism central. People go on keyboard warfare to express their unfiltered opinion and to have fights about it. And you had to go to a bar to do that back then. And these are sober people doing it. Yeah, it's weird. I always say now, there are no more bar fights. People just go to Google. They said, no, Maris had the record. No, Mansfield had the record. Let's Google it. What do you know? It's Maris. Yeah.
Makes for very short conversations.
Even guys who would just routinely throw down, who will now pause to get the definitive answer before, and then they could just keep drinking.
Okay, so this book is about your experience. In the context of writing and reading, you are known for writing words for other people.
This is true.
There's something that I heard you say on someone else's, in some other conversation, about how you take a Hocus Pocus script and you Bette Midler-fy it.
We Midlerized, yeah.
What is Midlerize? What does that mean to you? Can you give an example?
It means fluffing up the dialogue so it's a bit sharper and uses bigger words or in interesting configurations. On Hocus Pocus, Winifred Sanderson speaks in a weird sort of Shakespearean kind of these out, them those way that the original writers wrote in. There were 2 guys and they weren't writing in that vernacular. And so she's a crazy witch. So she turns words around and does things like that. And so that's what the Midlerizing is in that thing. But it's very delicate to go in and rewrite somebody who's actually written the script. This is not like putting words in the mouth of somebody who's going to go out and give an award or do a speech or that kind of thing. It's a whole different thing because you're writing to a character, not to a personality. Although,
Right.
The line between character and persona is frequently crossed.
Depends on who we're talking about. At this point, you probably know her voice better than she does.
Yes, but she always surprises me. She constantly surprises me. She was a merit scholar, and she is incredibly literate. She always jokes that if she didn't do this, she'd be a librarian, because that is her instinct. She really, if you asked her what she's reading, it's piles of things, and a lot of design stuff. But fortunately, she has many coffee tables. So she has floors of coffee tables. She has rooms of all those huge books.
That's what I need more of, coffee tables.
If they're going to keep putting out the Taschen, puts all those gigantic books, stuff like that. I have on my coffee table, it never moves, the large book of Big Penis, which is a Taschen. And I have also the second printing, which had 3D glasses included.
Do those sit next to it?
But
on the
of
coffee table?
course,
Yes.
you know, for those who really want to spend some time.
You have to get the full experience.
There's also a traveling version, the little book of Big Penis. The pocket size, exactly right. But that is one of my go-to coffee table books. And my friend Franz Taccaro writes, Drag, he had a huge coffee table. Disco, a huge coffee table book.
You are the guest gay reader. Is there anything that you are reading that you need to get off your chest? Do you have to complain about anything? These teeny tiny things that we're holding space for.
I live in LA. My pet peeve is the guy in the car in front of me. Whoever it is. It doesn't even a guy. The car in front of me is my pet peeve. It's like, move, bitch. Whatever they're doing is wrong as far as I'm concerned.
100%. Why is that the case?
Because it's LA, and because
It's everywhere.
They're not the excellent drivers that we are. You, me, and Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man. We are all excellent drivers. So what can I say? All you can do is sit there and kind of hope it doesn't become acid reflux.
I know. That is a great grievance.
Texting has come in. That's the most amazing thing. And I know that there's like, don't text and drive, but generally when you're sitting at a light and they don't move in front of you, you know that's because they are texting. And I'm shouting, stop texting, start driving. I should have a robot voice that goes out of the car.
That's what your horn should do.
Exactly right. Instead of, oh, you God, should be stop texting, start driving. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Who do we need to write to?
Yes, the Ayuga people. Who are they? Where are they? They're probably in Ayuga, Iowa, or it's someplace.
That plant got shut down.
Well, right. That was Elon closed it. Exactly.
Thank God for people like you, though, to keep things light and joyous.
You have to, or you go crazy, I think. And fortunately, I'm not a federal employee, and I don't have to deal with it at the moment that way. But
Yeah. To bring us joy, we have, it seemed like a bad idea at the time, the worst TV shows in history and other things I wrote.
it winds up being a book about bad ideas and how you try to make them good because they're paying you, and it's a hopeless task. Or ideas that started out pretty good and then wound up being bad because of one thing or another. And it's nobody plans for something to be the worst show ever written. It happened, but it does start generally with a bad idea.
And that's how you are here today.
That's right. Exactly.
And that's all that matters.
I'm bad to talk about my filthy reading habits.
And your 3 bathrooms.
In 3 bathrooms.
And your giant penis bug. Bruce, thank you for being here.
What a treat. Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
All right.
Bruce, Charlotte, thank you so much. Everyone, you're rock stars. Go check out the show notes for more. Check out the link tree. Check out the Instagram. And I will see you later this week for the bonus episode with Claire Leslie Hall. Bye.